What would you do if you found an iron-bound chest overflowing with gold bars and stacks of 500 euro notes in a dark, forgotten basement? This evening, our financial literacy was put to the ultimate test, not in a classroom, but in the freezing shadows of a crime scene. We had just celebrated opening my first bank account, a small victory in personal finance. But an hour later, we were at the heart of a high-stakes heist. I realized then, asset management in the real world isn't about dry spreadsheets, it's about ice-cold discipline. When a fortune is on the line. Slowly, the shock of the ransacked living room began to fade, replaced by a strange itch of curiosity, what my cousin Marcel calls the spirit of adventure. Monica, pale as a ghost, kept insisting we call the police immediately. But Marcel and I exchanged a look. Something about the chaos was wrong. The burglars had torn down all of Mrs. Trump's financial charts and tables, yet they seemed to have missed exactly what they came for. "Did you notice?" Marcel whispered as we cautiously moved through the house. When Bianca ran inside, her barking sounded distant, like it was coming from deep underground. "Maybe there's a real dungeon here," Monica shuddered, clutching her poodle, Willie, tighter. I laughed to mask my rising nerves, but the idea of a basement wouldn't let go. If Mrs. Trump is truly teaching us financial management at the highest level, she wouldn't keep her greatest secrets in plain sight. We began a methodical search, investigating every corner until we stumbled upon a strange door under the stairs. It was disguised as a simple broom closet, but behind it lay a steep stone staircase plunging into pitch-black darkness. I was terrified, but I couldn't admit it to Marcel. He had just started to respect me after our trip to the bank, and I wasn't about to lose that. We began the descent. The steps were cold, and the walls smelled of damp earth and ancient stone. In the flickering candlelight, the basement felt endless. When we reached the bottom, we found a massive room cluttered with old relics, shelves of canned goods, and dusty jars of preserves. "There's nothing here," I whispered after we circled the space. But Marcel didn't give up. He pointed to a small, almost invisible door in the wall, hidden behind a heavy shelving unit. If it weren't for his sharp eyes, I would have walked right past it. We carefully moved the shelf, prioritizing discipline over speed. One broken jar could give us away. The door was locked. "Darn it, we're stuck," Marcel sighed. "I wonder what's in there." "A treasure. Probably the gold of Fort Knox," I joked, but at that moment, Bianca nudged my hand with her wet nose. In her teeth, she held an old iron key. That dog knew the rules of this game better than we did. Marcel took the key, and the lock yielded with a heavy, oily click. Behind the door was a tiny room, and in the center stood a massive chest made of dark oak and reinforced with forged iron. A giant padlock hung from it. A click and the lid gave way. "No way." Marcel breathed. "Now I know what those guys in masks were looking for." I looked inside, and my breath caught. It wasn't just treasure, it was the concentrated result of perfect financial planning. There weren't just stacks of cash, there were gold bars, piles of coins, and folders full of sensitive documents. What do we do? My voice trembled. "If we leave this here, the thieves will come back." "You're right," Marcel said, his face hardening. "We need the police. But first, we inventory everything, just in case." We were taught that financial literacy begins with accounting. It was a surreal feeling, sitting in a dark basement cataloging a stranger's fortune. When we finished, the list in Marcel's pocket was staggering. 50,000 euros in cash, 25 gold bars, 78 coins, a patch of gemstones, and a stack of securities and bonds. "Why does she keep this here?" I asked. "This is what truly wealthy people do, Kira," Marcel replied in a teaching tone. "This is a reserve fund, a rainy day stash. I bet Mrs. Trump has 10 times this in banks, but this chest, this is her safety zone. She probably loves coming down here just to feel the weight of her success." I remembered my mom saying money was dirty and that you should wash your hands after touching it. But here, Looking at the clean glint of gold, I understood. For the wealthy, money is a tool and energy, not filth. Suddenly, the dogs barked. First Money, then Bianca. They weren't just barking, they were growling, the hair on their necks standing up. Monica, is that you? Marcel shouted toward the stairs. No answer. Only heavy footsteps from above, getting closer and closer. Pure terror froze my blood. We were trapped. A flashlight beam suddenly hit us, blinding us.
So, who do we have here?
Someone said in a bass voice. None of your business. Marcel shouted, trying to shield me. Burnt, look at this. A second, even rougher voice said. The girl was right, there's a fortune here. I screamed, telling them to get out. But then, the light caught a patch on the man's sleeve. Police. Later, sitting in the back of a police cruiser, I realized how close we had come to disaster. Monica hadn't been able to stand the silence and called for backup. It was the best risk assessment decision of the night. As the officers hauled out the heavy chest and forensics tested for prints, I looked at the dark forest and realized Mrs. Trump wasn't just a wealthy lady. She was the keeper of a system that someone was very desperate to destroy. We saved her gold, but now we've become part of this secret war. Something tells me our next lesson in financial literacy is going to be even more dangerous.